It beats as it sweeps as it cleans. At least that's the conventional wisdom when it comes to cleaning carpet. What if I told you everything you knew about carpet cleaning was wrong, especially carpet pickup tests? Welcome to Performance Reviews, where I give you the review from the technician's point of view. And welcome to the Miele Jasper. This was the first machine that Miele made, and it was the first machine that wessel-werk introduced the high-efficiency suction nozzle.
There was also the S8 Elise that also had this floor attachment.
This is a nozzle that was intended to replace brush rollers on vacuum cleaners. And Miele even claimed that it was more efficient in pickup than their outgoing SEB 217 carpet nozzle. So in today's video, we're going to go over what this is, why it's rare, and maybe change some of your thoughts about carpet cleaning by showing kind of the performance of this nozzle and some of the other nozzles that would evolve from this later. Now, traditional wisdom says that you have brushes that rotate and clean the carpet, and really old wisdom says you should beat it with a metal bar to clean the carpet. But as it beats, as it sweeps, as it cleans, the Hoover cleaner makes rugs last longer. Unfortunately, that was not true, as we found out the beater bar was actually destroying carpets. So companies would switch to an all-brush design. For years to come, companies would just add brushes that rotate to the carpet nozzles and kind of continue about life. A lot of them not even thinking about the shape, the design, the aerodynamics. They were just adding brushes in to machines. Now I have here a Miele 217 and a 228 nozzle or EBK 360 nozzle from Miele. I say from Miele, they are all made by wessel-werk. Now what is most curious is the next nozzle that I'm about to show you that comes on the Jasper. When we compare the intake size of this is almost 3 inches wide compared to this, which is about a little bit more than a ½ inch wide. It's like one or 2 centimeters wide. You just see how narrow this is and how that's concentrating the suction. And then it's angled inwards. We're rotating brushes because of the rotating brush, you can't really get it in that shape. When we look at the underside of the Jasper brush, you notice there's no rotating brush. Instead, we have a very aerodynamic and efficient suction path, a grounding strip, and that's it. And this looks very, very simple. However, this nozzle is extremely high tech. This would start a wave of energy efficient nozzles sold in Europe that would eventually make their way here to the US. Now, here in the US, we don't have energy restrictions. That is a European thing. So this nozzle to the US market doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And that's why they stopped selling it here in the US. Now, this is not the first time we would get a nozzle like this. In fact, the first time I saw this nozzle, this Hoover nozzle came to mind. They both have a flexible hose. They both have 2 wheels. They both are self-leveling heads. However, this has a double joint. Where this would have a single joint, we would see a very concentrated suction path with a set of lip pinkers. Very, very similar. I mentioned that this nozzle was a copy of this Hoover nozzle to the Miele rep, and he looked at me like I had 6 heads, and he was quite used to my mannerisms at this point. Shout out to Winston, who used to work at Miele. So the AirTech nozzle was quite the deluxe head. And when it hit the US market, having a bumper on the head, having a pedal, so either right or left foot could actuate it, and this, again, self-leveling head. This was quite the deluxe head, and really a lot nicer in terms of features than the switchable heads Miele had put out in the past. However, it was not well received by the US market. I will talk about why that was a little bit later. So this head was feature-rich and very expensive to make. In fact, the retail price when these S6s were on the market of this head, well over $100 for a straight suction head, when most people were used to straight suction heads being between like $20 and $40. So what if we took all the lessons learned from this, the technology, and we stripped it down? Well, wessel-werk would do exactly that later. This is a wessel-werk high efficiency head. It self-levels, it's single jointed, it only has a pedal on one side. There is no bumper. Furthermore, when we go underneath it, we have just added a squeegee for hard floor cleaning and a very basic set of brushes rather than the brushes all the way around this. But we keep that energy efficient path. Again, it is a little bit narrower. This is a European spec nozzle, but you can see that this is very narrow. And this nozzle right here cleans phenomenally well using the lessons that we learned from this AirTech nozzle from Miele. You would later see this nozzle go on to be paired with Henry and countless other vacuum cleaners out there, whether they were high-end or on a budget. And as we go to wessel-werk's website today, you can see the energy-efficient nozzle series has really grown. And again, this design, this shape, this intake, there is a lot of math, a lot of research and development put into the shape and size of this, and that's one of the reasons it works so well. Well, meet the S6 Jasper. This is one of the most European machines we've ever received on the American market from any manufacturer, and it was not well received by dealers. Why, this was the only S6 at the time to come with a HEPA filter, which was the primary reason that customers would buy this over the other S6 machines. The added price for the nozzle was confusing for consumers and dealers alike, and a lot of people didn't understand how much suction and cleaning power this nozzle had. They also didn't like how hard this nozzle was to push. It takes a lot of effort to push this on carpet when you have this machine on full suction. In fact, this concentrated so much suction that dealers were told to stick it to the wall to demonstrate to the customers how much suction this machine had with this nozzle. And I, in fact, definitely did that when I would demo this for customers. However, I don't think I ever sold more than a dozen of these over the couple of years these things were on the market. So we're gonna do our standard carpet pickup test with breakfast cereal, cat litter, fine sand, and fresh pet hair. And I've tried to put the same amount out for each 3 of these vacuum cleaners. I have here a Kirby representing that it beats as it sweeps as it cleans can. I have a Miele with a 217, a small electric nozzle with a high suction machine, and I have the Jasper. So we're gonna go ahead and vacuum with all 3 of those. So first up, the Kirby. All right, I hope those results show on camera. We're gonna go ahead and zoom in. Let's go ahead and look at the results from the Kirby. It definitely left some very aggressive lines in the carpet, but yeah, you can see it kind of snowplowed the cat litter, moved animal hair around, and you can even see the fine sand right here. In fact, it might be the most pronounced on this one right here. All right, next we have the Miele with the 217. Now this snow plowed right here, got all the pet hair, got all, oh, there's a little bit of cat litter left, and there's less fine sand in the carpet, but there's, again, you can still see it. That's why we use this fine sand. It's really hard to pick up. All right, now we have gone to where the Jasper cleaned. And the Jasper snow plowed some of the big objects. So there's cat litter and breakfast cereal that got snow plowed. And you saw when I did that run, I just pulled it back the reverse way just to show that it will pick it up. But pushing forward was gonna snow plow. So we have a little bit of hair. But we have almost all the fine sand is gone. And in person, it is a noticeable difference. Again, I hope this shows up on camera, just how much fine sand that picked up the first go around compared to the other two. That is what they're basing their carpet pickup tests on, is a fine sand like this. The practical example of cat litter, breakfast cereal are important though, and that's something that consumers would not forget when they were vacuuming with this. You have to admit, that makes some nice carpet lines. So if these high efficiency nozzles are so good, performance reviews, why aren't they the norm here in the United States? Well, there are two reasons for that. The norm here in the United States is a machine with a brush roller for carpet, and we have plenty of them on the US market to choose from, including from manufacturers that also offer these high efficiency nozzles. So the real reason you don't see these nozzles, in my opinion, in the United States is they're really hard to push. These require more effort than what most American consumers are used to push the vacuum across the carpet. In fact, I even made a whole video explaining that years ago because it's such a common complaint with some of the older Miele's. Now you can turn the suction down on this and that will make this very easy to push. But a lot of people won't believe that will clean with that lower suction. However, that video I just showed you of me cleaning the carpet, I have it on the lower setting. So it definitely will clean carpet. The other reason we don't see these commonplace on the US market is we have no energy restrictions on vacuum cleaners. The government in the US thankfully does not restrict the amount of electricity we can use on vacuum cleaners, which is a blessing, especially considering here in the US we have 110 volt outlets, where in Europe you have 220 volt outlets, which means our motors typically make a little less suction than they would in Europe. That being said, I am glad the government doesn't regulate vacuum cleaners here. The other thing I want to note in Europe is vacuum cleaners have to be not only energy efficient, they also have to pick up. They actually rate them like the government rates miles per gallon in cars here. So maybe not the most accurate, but they rate them for carpet pickup, noise, and energy efficiency. All things that American consumers seem not to care about. This nozzle has been discontinued by Miele. However, Miele just launched the L1 series of vacuum cleaners and the M1 series of vacuum cleaners. Oddly enough, most of those are straight suction. They do still have an electric power head, but they have some new straight suction nozzles out. Unfortunately, they're not shipping yet. At the time of recording, I have one on order and I've been waiting for it for weeks from Miele. So we'll see if they actually show up here in the United States. Hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of our latest videos to see if that shows up. So I hope that's been a nice look into straight suction cleaners and their advantages. And I hope this kind of settles some of the myths people have about cleaning carpet that you need a brush roller. It's nice to have a brush roller. It makes it push easy on carpet. But is it actually necessary? No, it really isn't. Even to remove stubborn pet hair, an efficiency nozzle like this will even do that. Thanks for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and have yourself a wonderful day.